Hello, everyone. So, this is going to be a fun one, and it's going to kind of be hard to get my thoughts across for this one. So, there's been a lot of drama. Oh, wow, I am just everywhere, aren't I? Oop, oop, oop. Okay, there we go. I exist now. Oh, am I way down here again? Jesus. I know that I'm using a model that a famous VTuber is using now, but in my defense, I didn't know about it until long after he started using his and joined a company that is made up of, well, random VTuber modeled people. Anyways, so this one's kind of difficult to actually go about, and it has to do with criticism, harassment, drama, and other stuff. And how I think that social media has actually screwed over a lot of different people in regards to how we fundamentally understand the world around us. And it's actually kind of difficult to. Difficult. No, this is going to be more of an impossibility for me to get across everything that I want and have people understand and accept it. For one, because I'm using a VTuber model, and a lot of people don't take VTubers seriously, but also because, well, the subject matter is complicated, and today's populace of the world lack in critical thinking. I say the world, a lot of places in the world, not everywhere. Anyways, so recently there has been a drama that I'm sure that a lot of people are aware of, which is Celine slash DokiBird versus Nijisanji. And we have somehow managed to bring the entirety of Japan's idol culture to the United States in its own way, with Ian branches of Hollow Live slash Nijisanji slash whatever other companies that exist that have brought VTubers to the West. And we've taken the parasocial nature that the Japanese have towards idols, and we have taken the worst parts of it and brought it to the US in regards to how we treat people and companies. Grant you, social media is actually part of the reason for how this ended up happening in the first place. However, let me try to get my thoughts across. People have taken sides on this matter, where you have people who support Celine slash DokiBird and are ravenous and angry and they want accountability. But then you also have the people who are fans of Nijisanji or their talents, and they are kicking and screaming and they're just rah. But then there's a third crowd whom I think are the worst in real, if you're really thinking about it. So you'll normally always have groups that are on one side or another side. But then you have the people who are closer to the middle, but also weirdly more extreme, which is you'll have the people who aren't necessarily in favor of Nijisanji, but they like one of the Nijisanji livers. And so they will defend anything and everything that Nijisanji does, so long as their liver, their Oshi, or whoever is still a part of the company. And I think that fundamentally that is a very terrible mentality to have, because What happens if the bad things that are happening to everybody else happens to your Oshi? You know? And it's like, oh, well, I'll deal with it then. It's like, okay, well, why not deal with it now? But then you have the others who are just big corpo bad. And I'm like, yeah, corporations can be bad, but not all corporations are bad. I mean, you have companies like Face Connect, for instance. Face Connect is a lower end, like, VTuber company, and while not while not like the most amazing company in the world and certainly not rolling in money, you know, they they actually treat their talents with a level of dignity and respect that I don't really see outward facingly from other companies. And it's funny because you'll see, like, on stream, like, talents will go on to streams where their boss is actually like part of the stream and talking about stuff dealing with the company, and they will get on Discord calls and harass him and then leave out of call. And it's actually kind of funny, and it shows that there's more of a, and it sounds stupid, but more of a family vibe going on. It's like it's all those companies that are like, this is not a business, this is a family. Except for Face Connect, it's kind of actually true. At least Ian's side, anyway. I don't know anything about the Japanese side because they just branched out recently. But fundamentally, this video isn't about VTubers. Not really, anyway. The only real part about VTubers that is of any real relevance here is the parasocial relationship and the dilemma that the whole DokiBird versus Nijisanji situation kind of magnifies, I guess would be a good term. And it's showing that there's a lot of people who really do lack critical thinking. For some number of years now, we've been driven into a corner where we've been told that don't critically think. We will teach you what to think, we will teach you how to think, and you will only think about these things in these ways, period. And I'll hear some people say, no, that's not what's happening. And it's like, yeah, no, that's exactly what has been happening for some number of years now, actually. It's just that you are so dedicated to what you were taught and how you were taught, you cannot fathom the idea that you were brainwashed. And it brings me to another point, which is the fact that we have people, a lot of people in the world actually, who cannot fathom or understand nuance at all. The moment they hear left wing, right wing, communist, capitalist, socialist, conservative, liberal, any of those words, they absolutely lose their mind. Nuance exists in the world, and it's important for us to actually look at that and go, hey, you know, maybe things are more gray in this world than we actually give credit for. And it drives me absolutely insane that people just cannot get their heads out of their anuses and realize this. It's not 50 shades of gray, it's not 70 shades of gray, it's 1,000 shades of gray that no one's looking at. You know, if you bring up cops, you have the all cops are good versus the all cops are bad. You bring up left or the right, and it's like all people on the left are bad, all people on the right are bad, all people on the left are good, all people on the right are good. And it's just fundamentally society and just the world as a whole is extremely nuanced and requires a lot of critical thinking. And it's people just they don't think. And it's not even critical thinking, just that they don't think. A thought enters their head, given to them often by someone else, and they look at it and they're like, oh, this thing right here, Clearly, this is true and correct, and this is the only thing that I should consider. Sorry, I'm having throat problems. So, one of my frustrations when it comes to all of this is part of where I want to get started, and the reason I brought up the whole DokiBird versus Nijisanji was so I can bring up this. So, this is a guy named Legal Mindset, and he is currently doing a collaboration going over the legal aspects of what is going on between Nijisanji and DokiBird. And he is collabing with False ID and Rima Evenstar? Yeah, Evenstar. Now, one of the things that False was more or less brought up with whenever he first joined this collab by Legal Mindset was how he even had some of this stuff come across his desk in the first place with the whole legal aspects of the nature of what is going on between, Doki and Niji. And a lot of people see False ID and they're like, oh my god, he's just a drama tuber. It's like, no. He reports things, generally speaking. He is the VTuber equivalent of a journalist and not a drama tuber in the slightest. Like, he's not out and about to try to start drama. He's out and about to do as much as he can to give information. He is presented and say, here's what we know, here's what we don't know. Here's events going on with certain companies. Here's some goofy stuff to look at. He reports on things that are currently happening. And a lot of people are like, well, reporting on it is drama because it's dealing with people and just stop. You don't make yourself look better. False ID is not a drama tuber. Most of the information that he gives, generally speaking, is what he can factually prove or show. The problem is a lot of people will see some of the information, they won't want to believe it or don't care to believe it, and you end up in a situation where it's like, no, this isn't how it happened. But that kind of goes back to one of my original points, which was there are people who think that their side or the people that they like can do no wrong. And it's like, yes, the people that you like can, will, and definitely probably do wrong. It's a matter of if you're willing to accept the fact that the people that you like or the side that you adhere to are not shiny golden gods who just are levitating above the rest of us in this weird utopian Ragnarok perfection. And it's actually frustrating dealing with people like that because you can't make them grasp the concept that there is gray everywhere. False has been reporting on what has been going on with the DokiBird controversy. Wow, I cannot talk. Controversy with Nijisanji, and Niji has proven themselves over and over again to not run their company very well. You can love them for whoever your Oshi is, I don't care. From a company standpoint, I think that they are probably a black company. And it doesn't matter how much their talents defend them. When your source of income is threatened, you will defend that income. That is just human nature. If you think people won't compromise their principles in order to keep making money, you are sorely mistaken. Do we know that that's what happened here? We don't. We have no idea. And that's the point. No one actually knows what's going on in this particular instance except what both sides have said. And it is a literal he said, she said. But reporting on what both sides have told us is still reporting, and it is not drama. Which actually leads me to another person who others would consider a drama tuber, but I would say that he is not a drama tuber, and this is Rev Says Desu. Now, Rev kind of half-ass portrays himself as conservative. Is he conservative? Probably not all that much, no. He might just be like slightly right of center. We don't know. We would have to ask him, but in retrospect, if we were to ask him, he probably wouldn't give us a straight answer purely because he doesn't want to be the political VTuber. He does a lot of what False does. If he finds out information before False does, he puts out every bit of information that he can. But the difference between him and False ID is that Rev is more of a commentary channel than he is a news channel. He reports on things that are up and coming and just generally information. And so, in that regard, he is kind of he would be more of a reporter than he would be a journalist. Um, he kind of just gives the information that he has present and gives some moderate amount of thoughts, gives a moderate amount of thoughts about whatever it is. Now, one of the reasons I brought up this picture, and I can go into why this whole social media criticism versus harassment and other things, it all kind of ties in together, so bear with me, is that Legal Mindset specifically is an individual that I think is interesting in how he handles the law. And the reason I came across him is because of people like this. Now, this is a lawyer, and this is a person who can sue the absolute pants off me if he really wanted to. This man probably makes more money than I will ever make in my life. Granted, I don't know when or why he started doing YouTube. I'm sure he's mentioned it, but I don't like him. And the reason why is because, politically speaking, I am just left of center, but I am also a libertarian. I am not an anarchist, just putting that out there. This man annoys the ever-loving bejesus out of me because his political breakdowns, depending on what he is talking about, are a product of his bias, and he is politically biased as a liberal, and an authoritarian liberal no less. Which, honestly, doesn't shock me. But beside the point, one of the reasons that I actually don't like this guy when I used to watch his content was because during a segment that he made, he was going over information in regards to a legal breakdown of movies and how certain things would break down in law, I guess would be the best way to say it. His name is Legal Eagle. And Legal Eagle was doing a breakdown of the biker scene from Captain Marvel, and said that legally speaking, Captain Marvel did basically nothing wrong, and she was perfectly reasonable, and the biker who told her to smile or whatever and touched a newspaper deserved to be beaten. And, well, that's not his exact phrase. I will obfuscate. Okay, obfuscate is the wrong word. Ugh, dealing with lawyers is a royal pain. Let me broaden the spectrum here. The general idea of what Legal Eagle was trying to present was that, legally speaking, when it comes to the breakdown of the scene in this movie, Captain Marvel essentially did nothing wrong and would probably have been proven in court to have done nothing wrong. And whenever I watched the breakdown, certain language that he used very much led me to the concept idea that this man is, well, how one says part of a cult. Not an actual cult, well, might as well be a cult, but beside the point. I have a bone to pick with the people who are the diversity, equity, and inclusivity group, and he very much bows down to that mentality, which is that you can be a 100% diverse group of people if it is a group of 100% black people from the United States, from literally nowhere else, born, raised, third, fourth generation Americans. That would be 100% diversity to people like this. Would he actually claim that? Probably not. Does he think it? I believe so. And I'll state it like that to remove myself from legal accountability, despite the fact that if he ever came across this video, he'd probably be like, well, let me break down why he's wrong about all of these things and how I could sue him and win and take everything he's ever gonna own. Not that he would say that, but that's beside the point. The reason that he plays a huge role in what I'm trying to talk about is because he led me to find this man. This man is named Viva Frey. He is actually a conservative. However, he is a moderate conservative who probably is very middle of the road. He would be barely right wing if he's right wing at all. He is a very fluffy person. I mean, yes, his hair is floofy, but just fluffy. That is his personality. It is just very fluffy. And he did a breakdown of Legal Eagle's video in which he discussed case law, because he is also a lawyer. And he basically broke down why Legal Eagle's entire argument towards what was going on in that scene was very legally misleading. We'll go with that. But he used a lot better language than I will use in this video. And the reason I want to wrap this all up in a bow is because one of the things that Viva here and Legal Mindset have both decided to talk about specifically is the fact that we need to differentiate the difference between criticism and harassment. Because a lot of people, whenever they get criticized by a few people or a lot of people, especially if they're a public figure, they tend to go, oh, you're just dogpiling me, you're harassing me. But here's the thing. You're online, posting things online. And if you are a large personality or a large company, you put yourself in the line of fire whenever you make any form of public statements or you put yourself out there at all. And so if you believe that you are getting dogpiled, I don't always necessarily agree with that concept, because dogpiling, while yes, you could use that as a representative term for what's happening, if you go out and kick a puppy, and we're just going to use this as a basic example because everybody knows it's bad to kick puppies, then what you end up with is a, like, oh, I don't know, you end up in an instance where you go, hey, look, kicking puppies is bad, and the entirety of the internet is going to descend upon you, and 99% of them, we're going to be generous because I'm not going to say 100%, but 99% of them are going to probably say some really vile things to you. And that's just the truth. So many of them are going to wish harm on you, wish death upon you. They're going to be very not great people, generally speaking. And I always come across this idea that being or endorsing violence is not the answer. No matter how bad the atrocity is that a person commits. Because to loop to an interesting movie franchise that everybody likes to meme on, Taken, you end up with a cycle of hate, which is what that movie franchise is entirely about, is the cycles of hate, you know? Man's daughter gets kidnapped in a foreign country, man tracks down who did it, kills a lot of people in the process because they were human trafficking. Then the father of one of the guys that got killed was privy to what was going on, didn't care, and he's like, well, you killed my son, so now I'm going to kidnap your family and, you know, show you what happens whenever you cross my family. And it's just like, okay, so hate breeds more hate is the premise of the movie, and that's it. That is the deepest part. That is the deepest meaning of that entire franchise, is that hate breeds more hate, and that it always will. And social media has brought out the worst of us. I mean, you have to think Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of these different social media platforms, and you have 13 or people under the age of 13 who have accounts on these websites who aren't supposed to. And if I had my way, minors would be 100% banned from all social media, just because having civil conversations online would be significantly easier, even if still difficult, generally speaking, because the generations that are on social media right now grew up on social media, a lot of them, and the rest of them just kind of went senile and hopped online and just decided to start spewing their worst possible opinions on all sides. So my point is this: criticism is not harassment. We need to make that 100% clear, because people need to stop getting all up in their feelings about the fact that basically everything. They need to stop getting up in their feelings about everything. People need to chill out when it comes to online influencers. Because I don't care if you're a person who likes a VTuber, or likes a VTubing company, or likes a VTuber who is part of a VTuber company and therefore will defend that company even if they basically decide that they want to burn down the freaking tropical rainforest. You can defend a person who you like without necessarily having to defend where they work or anything like that, or defending the company that they're a part of. And also, we need to acknowledge the fact that people like False ID and like Rev Says Desu, they're not drama tubers. They give information. False is more of a journalist, even though he would cringe and die on the inside if he ever saw this, me saying this. And Rev is tantamount to a reporter. He gives information and general thoughts on how he feels about the information that he's given. False, less so. Which is why I don't think that they're drama tubers. I just think that there's a lot of people who don't want to deal with the public perception of what will be seen given certain information, and they're like, no, I don't want that information to come out, so I'm going to say that these are drama channels who are just trying to get clicks. And it's like, so all news is drama then, because that is what news agencies do, is they put out information. Grant you, a lot of those punks typically end up putting out stuff that's false, but that's beside the point. Oh, you sound like a conservative and a right-winger because you don't trust the media. Well, considering that media has for years decided that they were going to lie about government agencies getting us into wars that we had no business being a part of, and then continue to lie about it for years after the fact, yeah, no, consider me a person who doesn't trust the media that much. But in the actual sense of what a journalist is, when it comes to VTubing, again, False ID is essentially a proper VTuber journalist, and Rev Says Desu is a VTuber reporter. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if one day you ended up coming across a scene where it was literally False kicking a camera over to Rev in front of a fake waterfall, reporting about Niagara Falls. Grant you, that's a Bruce Almighty joke, but that's beside the point. The only thing that I'm trying to make understood in this video is that One, parasocialism is bad. You don't know anyone at Nijisanji. You don't know DokiBird. You don't know Celine. You don't know False. You don't know Rev. You don't know Rima, I think her name was. I don't really know her all that well. You don't know freaking Gargura, Calliope Mori, uh, Fauna. You don't know Project Melody. You don't know Iron Mouse. You don't know any of these people. They give parts of themselves to you as an audience, but that's all they do. They all have their own views and their own thoughts and how they think and what they think. And a lot of you out there need to understand that they're not always going to agree with you and everything you say. And that's just the truth. And I know a lot of people who are there like, oh my God, she said one thing 20 years ago about something LGBT bad. It's like, okay, but was LGBTQ stuff, or it was just LGBT back then, and then even before that it was LGB. It was pretty normal back in that day to have certain opinions on LGBT stuff. And that's another thing that I would make a longer video on and talk about cancel culture and why cancel culture is toxic and very much does exist. And there are people who've lost their jobs, had their finances removed, and had just literal harassment and dogpiling hurled their way over basically absolute BS. I could make this video an hour long, but I really don't want to. But I'll say this in closing. People need to take a step back and understand that being parasocial doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the talents that you like. It doesn't help the personalities online that you like. And people are going to be biased. That's just a fact. They can try to be as unbiased as they can. That doesn't actually mean that they're going to succeed in being unbiased. And that's the hard part. Now, with people like Legal Mindset and Viva Frey, they pretty much make known what their thoughts are about things, but they do their best to steelman and give you general analyses on the law. People like Legal Eagle will use the loosest possible legalese when it comes to people on his political faction, and then when it comes to the opposing political faction, he will literally strawman most of their arguments, generally speaking, and kind of just give a cursory, oh, well, I'm going to pretend the facts are what they are, and just throw something that way so you have a false understanding of what is going on legally. And for legal reasons, that's an opinion. Even though he's proved me correct in more than one video. Beside the point. We just all collectively, as humanity, especially in the West, need to take a step back and understand that the world is a very, very broad, nuanced, and very gray place. And things are not always black and white. Actually, they are seldom black and white. And parasocialism needs to stop. Minors on social media need to stop, and I'm not going to ever not harp on that, because minors on social media, I can guarantee the amount of general damage that does to their psyches and their minds is going to have negative consequences for the rest of time. But people need to touch grass desperately. And they need to understand that parasocialism is bad in the way that they've been participating in it. Social media is not a be-all, end-all. You need to get away from it. And you need to stop adoring companies and talents so much that you literally will run to the ends of the earth and die atop the hill when it comes to defending them for literally everything rather than waiting for all of the facts to come out. Because the fact of the matter is, with the whole like Niji versus Doki thing, we don't know who bullied or harassed Doki. There are people who are going to say, well, she was never bullied, but that's the thing, you don't know. It's the same as saying we investigated ourselves and found that we did nothing wrong. Yeah, no, that's typical par for the course. Of course, you're going to investigate yourself and find that you did nothing wrong. Because most people can't admit that they do wrong. You think, like, just suppose we're going to use a Vox because he's Vox Akuma as part of this whole thing. Do you think if Vox Akuma was a guy who bullied DokiBird, that he would come forward and say, no, yeah, I bullied her, what about it? No, of course not. Because he's going to lose followers, and they're going to fall off like no one's business, and only the most hardcore people are going to stick around, and they're going to justify him bullying her. But for the most part, it is going to be a landslide of issues where Niji has to handle it legally, and then all of these other things. So of course Niji and their talents are going to say no one bullied and harassed her, because that would be a PR and legal nightmare. People are just, none of you can seem to understand that nuance is an extremely necessary thing. And not only is it an extremely necessary thing, but people need to get their heads out of their anuses and realize that sometimes critical thinking skills are very, very necessary when it comes to stuff like this. All of this. Understanding criticism without considering it harassment. You know, understanding why parasocialism is bad while still enjoying the talents that you enjoy. Or understanding that sources can be politically biased or socially biased and may say things that aren't entirely accurate 100% of the time. Or they will portray the things they do with weasel words, so technically it's not wrong, or no, it is not factually wrong, but it is truthfully wrong. I know how I meant that to sound, but I don't know if it came out the way I wanted it. Factual but not truthful? Yeah, factual but not truthful. So all in all, people need to just step back. Step back and understand that things are more complicated than you realize most of the time, and dying on a hill for a person that you don't know makes you the fool. And you can come out in favor of Niji, in favor of Nijisanji live talents for English, or you could come out in flavor in favor of DokiBird. It doesn't matter. Side with whoever you want to side with, but understand that the amount of information that you are privy to is basically next to nothing. And at this point, it is literally only a he said, she said, and only backed up by people whose, well, financial livelihoods are potentially at stake if they don't stand behind the company. Anyways, this video ended up a lot longer than I wanted it to, but I don't know how else I would break it down or condense it. None of this is scripted. So I hope you enjoyed, and au revoir.